Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. Friends, we all know we want to invest on big mega trends. And one of the biggest trends out there globally is the emergence of the Chinese middle class. And by the way, about 1 billion people have been pulled out of poverty over the last 20 years. And these people are aspirational. And more specifically, they are looking for Australian-made products, high quality at good prices. And we as investors are here to take advantage. And one of the ways, and we are thrilled to be joined today by Keong Chan of Aumake. And Keong is going to explain all about the company, the business, and how they make everything happen and get these fine Australian products up into Asia proper. And with that introduction, Keong, welcome to 18 Minutes with 180 Markets.
Thanks so much, Greg. Thanks for having me today.
Hey, Keong, everybody's got a story. In just a couple of minutes, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I've got a probably slightly different background. I've actually been involved myself over many years as an investor, so I can fully understand from an investor point of view what things they're looking for and what things they're thinking about. And from my journey, I started off in the big accounting firms, and I slowly transitioned, to the dark side, I think some people call it, but I started being involved, taking interest in capital markets. And about 5 years ago now, it would have been 5 years, I had a meeting with a colleague of mine, and as a fellow investor, he runs a quite significant family office, and we were talking about what was going on at the time, even at that point in time, Greg, like the emergence of A2 and some of the bigger brands and this thing called Daigo Australian brands into China. It was really starting to take off, and we thought, geez, what is going on here? What's happening here? And then that was basically the formation of Aumake, and we listed the company in 2017.
Yep. And can you just tell us a little bit about the Aumake business model? And also, we'll get into it later, how the model has transitioned, but maybe just talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, so with Aumake, the transition of the business and where we find ourselves today is really, I'd like to couch it and maybe communicate that to our listeners and our viewers as a transition, as an evolution of Aumake. So when we listed the company, the original founder, who's our managing director, he actually has been involved in this industry for over 10 years. So it actually started a few physical stores out in Parramatta, and they were basically servicing the clientele, the demand, as you rightly said, the demand for Australian quality Australian and New Zealand products is at an all-time high, and basically all these physical stores and people involved in industry were servicing that need.
Yeah, and so the model, I think that we're all very familiar with, somebody going into a chemist warehouse, if you will, buying up a whole bunch of baby milk and shipping it off to Asia. But Aumake is a lot more involved in that. And also, if you could explain that, and B, also, if you could discuss maybe offline and online, because there's a lot of synergies and what I call a flywheel type of component where one part of the business accelerates the other part of the business. Can you just explain a little bit more about how Aumake works?
Yeah, I think that what you just said, Greg, is what I think a lot of investors and a lot of people would understand as being a thing. If someone going to Chemist Warehouse and shipping off products, that situation was actually due to it was such a surge in demand for those type of products. To be quite honest, I don't think the brands or retailers or anyone involved in that industry was prepared for that. So you had a number. That's kind of a very out of the box left field scenario that probably went on for a few years. But I think with the return of the students and the tourists in the near future, I don't anticipate that happening again, because you're right. I think the adoption and over the last 18 months during COVID, people have really embraced online all around the world, including China. And I think most viewers would be aware that China and e-commerce is actually the leader and frontier in the world. So they don't, certainly we know that they wouldn't expect to go to a physical store and have to pack boxes and do all that manual labor. I think they would be fully prepared and anticipate that when they return to Australia, whatever is most convenient. And I think sitting on the couch or in classes or on the bus and doing what they need to do to get their products back to their social network and their friends and family will be how they will operate. We don't foresee that stereotypical situation occurring again when they return.
Yeah, Keong, COVID has affected so many businesses, and it certainly has massively affected Aumake as far as the importing and export and everything. But here, right now, we're getting relaxed borders. We are emerging finally, may I add, out of this lockdown in Australia. Can you just tell us about how Aumake is positioned right here, right now, and to take advantage, let's just say, of the path forward?
Yeah, we actually break this into four pieces, and I think it's useful to think about in this chronological order. The first thing that I want to draw people's attention to is that our business pre-COVID was a sizable business. We generated $16 million in FY20. We were actually on track, Greg, to do $100 million, but obviously COVID emerged in early 2020. So we're a pretty big business, and we were doing some decent numbers. That's the first thing I would like to let people know about. But the reason why we can do that, and this is at the heart of the matter, is that we actually have the ability to direct traffic. Through our relationships with travel agents, and some of the biggest travel agents in Asia, including in China, over the last 20 years, we've had those relationships. We can actually get the customer from country to our stores and actually influence the itinerary of where they go and what they see. That's a very, very key ability that Aumake has. With that foundation, we can get them into our physical stores, right? And our business will be different now into the future. So prior to COVID, we had 14, 15 physical retail stores all up and down the eastern seaboard in New Zealand. What we will do post-COVID is that we will actually operate only a handful of stores, very, very few. We will think of them as flagship stores, but we will actually utilize third-party stores. And we actually started doing that. We used that business model in New Zealand in one of our stores in Ruatura, North Island, and it was really successful. We were essentially diverting tourist traffic to that store. That store would provide them the services and products they required, and then we would charge a commission for diverting the traffic to them. So what we can see for our physical store network is, again, a handful of stores that we will operate, but we will be increasingly utilizing other people's stores. And I think that's a really interesting way of expanding our reach, so that conceivably we will be directing a lot of traffic to other people's stores, and it's good for our customers too, because they can experience a lot of different things they would never normally have.
Yeah, and can I just ask, there are a couple of questions off of that. Number one, is it a more capital light model? And number two, for the consumer, does it expand their field of choice, if you will?
Absolutely. The capital light nature. So post going, I think the main thematic as well, post COVID, we'll be a far more efficient, scalable business. And critically, our business model is not reliant on operating 100 physical stores. Our business model is, again, going back to the point, totally taking advantage of the fact that we know how to get the customers to move to different places. So it'll be capital light, and yes, our customers will be able to experience things that they would never normally know where to go. Most of our customers wouldn't know about some of the retailers and some of the different brands. They have no idea, but they're extremely open to it. And that's another key point, Greg, is the future of the customers, based on our intelligence and based on the feedback we're receiving, is that they're going to be far younger. They're going to be traveling in smaller groups. They actually have more disposable income, and they actually want to experience the real thing. They're far more sophisticated. So we as an industry, and Aumake itself, but I think for the whole of the Australian, New Zealand tourism sector, will have to adapt to and be ready for. And I think we can be, because that's what we're good at. That's what we're good at, providing a really legitimate, genuine experience, both in products and services for these future Asian tourists, including the students.
Right. So, said another way, is it like an example where typically we all know those flagship type of tourist attraction places,
yes,
but then where Aumake steps in is to say, hey, listen, if you want to experience the real Melbourne or the real Sydney, if you will, that's
Yes,
when they come to you?
that's right. They come to us because we will provide them the experience all in one way. So, for example, actually, it's what we're also. I can give a bit further insight. Our feedback is that they will be spending less time in the capital cities, and they'll be spending more time regionally.
Interesting.
So it actually opens up a real different type of box of we've never discovered before. And from an investment financial perspective, it's far more attractive because they are prepared to spend money, Greg. They know what they want. They've done their research, and Aumake provides that to them. So our place in the ecosystem is actually the brands and products, because they still want to spend money on things. They love sending things back to their family and friends. So they're extremely impressionable and open to new things. That's where we play a part. So while they're going to a tourist attraction, we can send them to a physical store that we may or may not operate, right, ourselves, but the customer has a great experience. And the third point so we've covered the first point. Aumake has these travel agent relationships. We know how to get them there. We had 50,000 Chinese tourists through our doors pre-COVID. That's quite a few. We had about 5% of the market. Second thing, we've got these physical stores that we will now use more dynamically in terms of capital light by using third-party networks. Third one is the online part of our business. So during COVID, we've invested a lot of time and money and resources into building what we call the social e-commerce platform. And what we mean by that is, instead of a brand selling a product through our online platform as a retailer, as us serving as a retailer, as in effect marking up the product, we will actually allow the brand to be able to connect directly with the tourists, the students, and their social network back in their country of origin to be able to promote the brand. So it's a marketplace. It's not a retail model. They're very, as I think most viewers and listeners be aware, it's fundamentally different. So we think that when these tourists come through, a lot of them just thinking about it pragmatically and what would happen on a day-to-day basis, these guys will come through our stores. We know how to get them there. Remember, that's a very key point. A lot of our competitors have no idea how to capture these people because they seem to be lost in the system, but we know how to get them. We know that very, very well. They will scan a QR code and they will be immediately transferred onto our online platform. They can purchase in our store. They can purchase when they return. They can share that with their friends and family back home. It's extremely powerful. So live streaming, buying as a group, being able to share discounts, share benefits, the brands being able to communicate directly with the tourist and the customer and their social network has never been done before. It's always had this interface of retail in between.
Right. So there are a lot of moving pieces there, but it's really a question of the devil's in the detail as far as convergence of online, offline, and also that marketing aspect of having, you're almost using the brand to power Aumake as far as they're the ones that are going to be spending the huge money on marketing. Isn't that correct?
That's right. The brands, our role in this, I mean, as simply as possible, is to provide as little friction in between the brand and the customer, because the customer wants the brand and the brand also wants to get to the customer. So our role is to facilitate that. And yes, it's a great it's also a very, very good financial model because it's capital light. And we basically have this marketplace effect that we believe will happen. Now, the other thing which I want to draw your attention to is so an obvious question would be, how can Aumake grow? You know, well, how does it grow now that this is
Sure.
COVID? That's the obvious question. Most of our competitors have left the industry. Unfortunately for them, over the last 18 months, I think it's been well publicized. Cash flow impact of COVID has been extreme for those in our industry, COVID and also border closures. We've been very, very lucky to be able to get through that. We also have managed, because we've been very clear on what we're intending to do, to keep our relationships with the travel agents and our key people here. So what we actually see in front of us is a situation where most have vacated our industry and we can actually take up a lot of market share. Before pre-COVID, we were sitting around 5% of our market. We have the opportunity to take far, far more of the market now. And that's actually, we think about almost in a structural change in our industry and something that's quite generational, because whoever can seize that moment will probably be sitting in pole position for a long, long time. And it's going to be hard to move people from that position, I think.
Yeah, and speaking of timing, the timing right now really, in my opinion, couldn't be any better as far as with these borders reopening. This is the moment, we're coming into the, Christmas time of year. Um,
Yeah.
can, what would be, looking forward, your idea of success over the next, call it 12 to 24 months? Like, what would you really like to see out of the business?
Yes, we are. I think going back to my previous point was increasing our market share. So, and what we mean by that, because it will be a gradual take up. We've got students coming back, international students coming back to New South Wales, Victoria, our two key markets in December. But we would anticipate increased foot traffic through our physical stores, increased conversion onto our online platform, and increased purchasing through our online platform. And we're really looking to the again, leaning on one of your points you raised, the devil in the detail. We want to see our customers starting to purchase some of those new things, some of those things they've never really experienced before, because we've set up the entire system to cater for that scenario. So if I was to forecast 12 months, we would want to see that us taking the lion's share of tourists from Asia coming through our ecosystem. We would love to see that. And if we did see that, that's a huge tick for us. Financially, we will also see a much different scenario. Our margins would increase. Our take rate based on our marketplace would also increase. So we see a lot of that because of the return of the customer, we'll be able to see that. And I think from the brand perspective, on the flip side, we will want to see more and more brands coming to Aumake, asking to be, because we can put them physically in front of these people so they can experience this product, and them joining our increased new brand take up on our online platform too. So that's, I think in a nutshell, we want to, it's out, going Greg, it's our time now. It's been a very challenging 18 months, but I think we've managed to exercise a lot of discipline here around what our strategic objective is, to come out the other side and to take up market share and to actually deliver what the brands want to the customers, what the customer wants from the brands.
Yeah, of course. And, obviously, Keong, nobody could have foreseen COVID, and it certainly has been a disaster on that point of view. But would you say for Aumake, really, at the end of the day, this could actually be the way forward to really reinvent the business and to make it bigger and stronger than, perhaps like a form of tough love?
Yeah, I think you look if I look at a lot of industries, and we talk about this internally a lot of businesses have actually been amazingly grown a lot quicker and been in that pole position because of structural change, right? So post-COVID, I think this is the very definition of structural change, and I think that if Aumake, our opportunity now is to take advantage of that change, and importantly, we have all those relationships and assets and resources to make that happen. So it's actually incumbent on us as a business now to execute against that. One of the things that we will be doing is communicating more and more and articulating our position in the industry and how we can help the brands. But I think that's for us is where we are. So yes, it's a really exciting time, and we're very happy to be in this position.
Yeah, and before we get to the closing, also, is it fair to say that your ability to measure performance now, it sounds like you have so many data points, I should say, in your back end built in. Is that a good way for you to constantly measure yourself and to tweak the little things that working and not working?
That's right. I think from the data, what things like we can see, from a brand perspective, you can have very, very subtle differences in brands and positioning and marketing, and it can have a huge impact. We also, one of the other thing is pricing. What is the appropriate pricing for a product? We can provide that data back now to the brands, because our customers and influencers will be able to tell them exactly, hey, look, we think this can be done better, and if they adjust their pricing, they might see an increase in volume, right? So the brands have never had this transparency. It's always been gray. It's always been, no one's been really sure about how all this works. But I think that now, with the absence of these customers, but yet the demand for them in China and in Asia, we know that there's a huge market there for this. And I think that Aumake's role in this is to actually provide that level of transparency that both our brands and our customers actually want. And it's time for that now. COVID's allowed the industry to breathe. And then now we'll come back, and I think bigger and better than what we were before.
Definitely. Hey, Keong, we have to keep the interview short, unfortunately, although we definitely want to have a return interview with you. But in the meantime, do you have any closing remarks for the audience?
No, thank you very much for today, Greg. And I think today has been the start of, we'll have a number of announcements coming out in the near future around articulating our strategy and what we'll be doing and executing on. But I think that if people, as part of the reopening thematic, if people can just keep us in mind, I mean, think that we're here for the long term. So I'm glad that we have this opportunity to speak today.
Great. Thanks, Keong. Really appreciate it. And as I said, we definitely want to have a round two.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching another presentation by 180 Markets. Don't forget, if you want access to thousands of ASX capital raises, head on over to 180markets.com.au, sign up, and get on board for our very next capital raise. Thanks for watching.